I am Dory Lungi. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So I love the documentary category. It is absolutely my favorite. It is my favorite to watch. It is my favorite to help. It is my favorite because it adds actual video in it or interviews. And so you're actually interacting with something. Okay, so here we go. History Day documentary. The first thing that we need to remember is you need to always go to the rule book. Now, the rule book is very important because it'll tell you exactly what they expect. The number one thing that we need to worry about is that there is a 10-minute limit and that they require you to create, produce, and operate everything that you are doing for your documentary. You can be the only person in the documentary and with the person that you're interviewing. Although, and I will say it several times throughout today's presentation, the judges do not like to have the students in the documentary. So we highly recommend that you do not have yourself or another partner in your group in your documentary. You can use professional photos, film, and other sources, but you must include it in your annotated bibliography. The first thing you need to do is, I think I want to make a documentary. What are the 3 things that I must have? Well, in order to do a documentary, the first thing you need to have is lots of pictures. If you have lots of pictures, there's a good chance you can do a documentary. The second thing that's really important for a documentary is it's a video. So you should be able to have video clips. An optional piece is interviews. I highly recommend interviews because interviews can back your analysis and are very important. The next thing that you need to worry about is the History Day storyboard. Now, History Day storyboard is just like any of the other categories. The essay, the performance, the exhibit, you're going to have your introduction, your historical context, your thesis, your actions, your impact, your change over time, your conclusion, and your credits. But this PowerPoint is going to be up for you to look at later. This is what I recommend. I recommend that you only spend about a minute on your introduction, and then you put all of your meat in the middle, and then you leave 15 to 30 seconds on the credits. And we'll talk about credits a little bit more later. The next thing that we need to do is, what are the things to do for your pre-production? And you need to start gathering all your materials. You're going to get your essay that you and your teacher have been working on with all its quotes. You're going to gather your pictures, and you're going to be looking for video clips in your interviews. You're going to get together with your credits. If you do interviews, I highly recommend that you use a camera with a tripod, or sometimes they use a telephone. If you're using a telephone, the secret is to hold it very steady on a hard surface, or holding it between your 2 hands, but your hands have to be very steady. If you're doing interviews, I highly recommend that you have 2 cameras, and you can always borrow another phone from a classmate or even one of your parents. But 2 cameras can give you 2 different angles from an interview when the person is talking. The next and the hardest thing is, in order to do a documentary, you have to have a computer with video software and a microphone. Although many students are now able to do a 10-minute documentary on their phones. These are some of the softwares that I highly recommend. My favorite, which is very expensive, is Final Cut Pro, but it can be put on 5 computers. The problem with it is it's only available on Macs, but it can do you can have lots of video tracks and lots of audio tracks. iMovie is free. It is only on iPhone, iPad, and you can get it on Windows 11, and of course on an iMac. but it only has 2 tracks for video and 2 tracks for audio. Now, in a normal documentary, 2 tracks for video and 2 tracks for audio is enough. WeVideo is another video software that many schools are using. If you use the Power one, you can, it's $60 a year, and it's available for Mac, Android, and Chromebooks. But Windows use, a lot of them use Adobe Premiere. It is expensive. It's $21 a month, which adds up to $239 a year, but it can be used for Windows and Macs. I talked with a friend at BYU Hawaii who is a tech person up there, and he recommended DaVinci Resolve. It is free. It is available for Windows and Macs, and it has many window tracks. And it has also lots of audio tracks. But for all the features that you may need, you might have to get into the point where you have to actually pay for DaVinci Resolve. So my favorite is OpenShot 2.4.4 because it is free. It is available for Chromebooks. It goes to Windows. It's available for Macs. It's available for Linux. And it has many, many things that you can do. It starts with lots of tracks. It has great transitions. It is easy to put in titles. It can extract audio when you're trying to separate audio. The video can be stored on an external disk, which iMovie cannot. It has keyframes for those of students who love to do animation. It has a properties panel so that you have lots of buttons that you refer to. It has preferences to show the keyboard shortcuts. The problem with this one is that you have to remember to render often, but it is very easy to use, and it is perfect for beginners, but it is not good for 4K. But a National History Day documentary does not have to be 4K. I have included in here, in this PowerPoint, 5 different tutorials. I will start the iMovie one just to kind of get you. These are all located on YouTube, but from this PowerPoint, you can click onto it. And I'm going to go ahead. I can't even see it. Whoops. I'm going to go ahead and I went backwards. I'm going to go ahead and just click the iMovie. All of the ones, the tutorials that I chose are very short. None of them go more than 10 minutes. Okay, so we're going to move on to interviews. Interviews are very important for documentaries. The steps to doing an interview is you need to write out and send the interview the questions beforehand. You need to use a tripod to steady your video recordings. We highly recommend that you do not put yourself in the interviews. And when you finally get to your final, your documentary, we suggest that you keep the interviews very, very short so that you let your analysis show. The next section is production. Production is really important, and you have to start with a script. Whoops, let's go back. And the first thing that you should do is to watch some documentaries. I'm going to just kick into Summer Royales just for about a minute of it so you can see how it starts. There are many, many documentaries on Hawaii History Day and National History Day, and we highly recommend that you watch 3 or 4 of them before you actually do your documentary. And we're going to do 1 minute into Summers.
It was a man's world. Man made the cars to take us over the road, the train to carry the heavy load, the electrolyte to take us out of the dark. And it was Noah who made the art. And it was a man, James Brown, credited for this iconic song that his girlfriend, Betty Newsom, composed during a long ride. How did 60s America turn into this man's world? What happened to Rosie the Riveter, the Wasps, Rocket Girls, and Code Girls?
They fell victim to propaganda, the polity's attempt to restore pre-war status quo. Interestingly, This direction was the diametrical opposite of the Soviet Union's course, where women enjoyed near equal status with men since the Bolshevik Revolution. In '63, when Russia sent a female, Valentina Tereshkova, into space, the Tereshkova effect inflamed a second wave of feminism in America, while it had the antipodal effect in the Soviet Union.
Okay, we're going to go back. Summer does some wonderful things there. She brings you into her documentary using excitement and music that matches what she's going to say. She immediately puts in her title that we could see, and then she goes right into her thesis. These are very important points. But one of the things that Summer does that we discourage is she does put herself in the documentary. And we discourage it because the judges are always saying, well, if she's in the documentary, who is running the camera? So we always discourage anybody from putting their actual face in there. After you watch a few documentaries, the next thing that you need to do is create a treatment. A treatment is just a piece of paper with 3 columns: narration, visual, and audio. The narration is your essay that you've been writing with your teacher for the last few weeks. You take that essay and you break it up into parts. Then you're going to, on the second column, add the videos, the pictures that you think will match it. And then the third column, add your audio. Then you need to practice saying your speech or your lines many, many times before you actually record. Now, recording is another very, very important place. If you live in Laie, you remember that you have to record after the chickens and the roosters go to bed. Some people, what they do is they get themselves in a car and go down to like a private beach or up on a side row of a mountain where it's nice and quiet. Others I've seen where they take blankets and in their bedroom at night actually cover the windows of their rooms to try and soundproof. But another wonderful hint is there are many sites around the island where Olelo Hawaii will actually let you into their places to do the recording, and there is no cost. There used to be one at King, and I think there still is, and there's different places around the island. But check out Olelo, because if you really want a nice, clear recording, the Olelo stations are all free. Once you've done your recording, it's time to organize your footage. You need a wonderful thing to do is to label all interviewees with their name and the reason the person is reliable. Like, for instance, my grandma, and the reason she's reliable is because you're talking about cooking and she is a famous cook. Subtitles is another way that helps your documentary and helps the judges. Sometimes people will actually put in thesis, and then they will put, they'll write the thesis out and they'll put the subtitle, or they'll put their 3 main points there and they'll put those in subtitles, just like you do in a exhibit. Then you need to sit back and start taking away what is not essential. One of the things I always remind the students is take lots of breaks. So documentaries cannot be done at the last minute. Then have all your friends look at it, your grandma look at it, your mom look at it, and ask them where they got bored. In the end, and with having them looking forward toward the future, something hopeful and happy at the end. Editing pictures. JPEGs and PNG are both great for documentaries, but PNG is a little bit better because it is sharper than JPEGs and it supports a transparent background. The pixel size of your pictures should be at least, I would say, above 1,000, but the best is 3,000 and above. And you really need to limit the Ken Burns effect. That is a beginner's folly, that people know that you're a beginner because Ken Burns sometimes makes your pictures very blurry. And sometimes there's too much movement when you're trying to talk and you're trying to give an effect that the judges cannot hear or understand what you're saying. Now, here are two pictures where the pixels, you notice in the first one, it's 3,000. And in the second picture, it's much lower. Now, the interesting thing is both pictures look just fine. But the problem is when you get it into your documentary, the pictures that are low in pixel actually start becoming very blur. Transitions are very, very important. We discourage a lot of transitions, but there are specific ones that we need. The first one is a cut, which abrupt stop between shots. The next one is a fade in, which is used at the beginning, and a fade out that is used at the end. Another popular one is cross dissolve, and you might want to use cross dissolve to give the impression that you're moving over a space of time, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, the next day. This cross dissolve kind of overlaps and replaces it with another shot. Now, transitions can be important, but you need to use the same ones throughout. You don't want to have there's every software that I know of has 20 or 30. Do not use all 20 or 30 because it seems cool. Keep it down to 1, 2, maybe even 3. Now, if you want to give it the effect that you have suspense, you start speaking a little bit faster, and you can use the transition push. Remember, we want you to keep your transition simple. Don't overuse it, and keep it smooth and natural, not forced. Now, another extremely important part in your documentary is pacing. And this is where a lot of students have so much information, and they're trying to pack so much information in that their judges can't hear it because they're speaking too fast. Keep it relaxed and thoughtful, like talking in a group with your friends. Have others watch it to find out if it's too fast or too slow. If it's too fast, you need to go in and remove material. Be careful about cutting out the natural pauses. And what I mean is, when people speak, there usually is about a 4-second pause when the person stops and then starts to speak again. Now, when you are working with your documentary, it is very easy, because you need to cut out some seconds, to cut out that 4-second pause. That pause, you can maybe cut out 1 second, maybe 2, but those pauses are important because it also gives the person that is talking a chance to think about what you are saying. So be careful when you cut out that natural pause that is there. Credits. Credits are really funny. Some students think they have to put the whole thing in, and I'm going to show you a sample very quickly, but it just needs to be readable, brief. It just needs to list all the interviews. Film clips, you can put it all into, like, if you got it from one place, you can put it all into one place. Images, you can say you got the images from the internet. You need to, list that you got where you got your music. Because you're going to cite everything in your annotated bibliography, you can keep it very, very simple. And you can actually, if you keep it to what I'm going to show you on the next one, I'm going to bring up the next slide. If you do it something like this, you can actually bring your credits down to 10 seconds, because a judge in 10 seconds can see this whole credit. And I highly recommend that you stop your credits and make it a single slide just like this and hold it for 10 seconds. Even you can go as high as 15, but if you keep your credits as simple as this, you can bring it down to 10 seconds. Another thing about the credits is, when I work with my students, I always suggest that they do their credit page first. Then they will know how much time left they will have in the rest of their video. Now, post-production. Now it's time to add your music. It's really important to match whatever you have to the theme. Now, the volume is also important. Sometimes students have their music up so high that you can't hear what they're saying. Music can manipulate the mood and create a certain feeling and an understanding. All of the music that you use needs to be included in your annotated bibliography, and you need to be careful of copyrights. Now, let me see if I can bring this on. I want to stop and show this little video that's found on YouTube about sound and how sound can affect your video.
People may not realize is that music is an incredibly important part of film and television. Used correctly, it can enhance the emotions of any scene. For example, the music you're listening to right now is making me seem like the coolest as far as going to know. Wrong. Sounds like this. What many people may not realize is that music is an incredibly important part of film and television. Do you see what I mean? That was just one example of how music can change the viewer's perspective. Let's have a look at a couple more.
Here's your tea. Oh, cheers. Did you put sugar in this?
Yeah, I did. We assume the tea drinker isn't very happy with the fact sugar's been put in their tea, because the music is telling us this. However, if we replace the music with something else, we get this.
Did you put sugar in this?
Yeah, I did. Looks like the sugar wasn't so sinister after all. Let's have a look at another one. Music can affect the way you observe and judge certain characters. The man we just saw seemed like a hero or some sort of leader. But if we change the music, he looks like a villain. And now it looks like he's grieving. But let's try another one. The music indicates that the man is running somewhere to do something good. This is what the music is telling us. But if we switch it around,
I think you can got the picture. That was enough. So if you got a little bit of it, and if not, you can watch it on yourself, but just by clicking that link. This music is very, very important to setting the mood of your video. As we saw in Summers, hers opened it up and it brought us in excitingly, and we immediately knew she was going to be talking about a man's world because of the choice of her music. With music, be careful of copyrights. Make sure everything is included in your annotated bibliography. But be aware that Walt Disney does not like their music to be used even in student videos with more than, I want to say, 30 seconds. So if you're using Walt Disney music, you need to keep it down to a small amount of music. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Sound effects are always discouraged, but sometimes you can use it to mimic reality, but you need to be careful when using sound effects. And we do discourage it unless it's absolutely necessary. When you are finished, you need to turn your documentary into an MP4. National asks you to save it to Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox. Hawaii does accept YouTube, so you could do it in YouTube now, but if yours goes beyond states and up to national, you will have to move it to your Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox. That is the end of my presentation, but if you have any questions, you can contact us at historyday@highhumanities.org.